Welcome, all of you, to this lesson. And in this lesson, we're going to be discussing HTML attributes. HTML attributes are a modifier of an HTML element type. And an attribute either modifies the default functionality of an element type or provides functionality to certain element types unable to function correctly without them. So it's just a modifier. How do we modify the HTML element a little bit? So we are going to take a look at that. And in HTML syntax, the attribute is added to the HTML syntax tab, which we are going to look at next. So before we start putting down any lines of code, what you need to know is, again, just to repeat, is that HTML elements, which we talked about, can have attributes, right? And these attributes provide additional information about the elements, right? And attributes are always specific to the start tag, all right? So the tag that starts the element, it's where you put the attributes, and they are always in like pairs, right? Name value pairs. So we are going to look at that now. So let's look at the p tag again, right? So I have a p tag that I'm going to write this is a paragraph, right? Okay, so let's run this, and I have this is a paragraph, right? So this is my element, a p element, right? What I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna style this element up using an attribute. So like I said, we always use the stats tag, and then I'm gonna add an attribute called style, and it's gonna come in pairs. So the style equal to, and then I'm gonna put a style in there. So I'm gonna say color, it's colon red, right? So I can do something like this, and then when I refresh this, it becomes red, right? So I can say this is a red. You know what? I think I made a mistake, right? So this is a red paragraph, right? So like you can see in this example, the attribute which always goes into the stat tag was the styling, right? The style. And then we styled it out by saying that we wanted this to be red. So it's adding extra information, it's modifying the existing element as we talked about. Another attribute we can look at is the href attribute, right? So that goes into the a tag. So I'm going to create an a tag, which is like an anchor tag. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say Google. Let's go to Google, right? Google site, right? Now this is just an a tag, right? So if I wanted to put a link here, what I can do is I can add an attribute which you're going to call href, and then I set this in pairs, so the equal to comes, and then your quotation, and I'm going to say http http uh, colon and www.google.com, right? So hopefully this works. If I click this, open a new tab, I go to Google, right? So this is another tag, and it's modifying the existing anchor elements as we discussed. The next attribute we would be looking at would be the image or the source attribute, and that goes with the image uh, element, right? So I'm going to have the image element, which is used to display images, right? Uh, and in this image element, I'm going to have the source equal to attribute, right? So I want to display the right brain. So now I have this element called img image, and then the attribute is show me this image. So if I refresh this, I get this nice brain, right? So yeah, so that is the source attribute. So one thing that we have to highlight is that a given, and in all the past examples that I gave, it was just one attribute for per element, but you can have multiple attributes for an element. So for instance, for this image element, if I wanted to add multiple attributes, maybe I want to change the height, right? I want to tie it down to 300 by, and maybe the width, right? By say 300, right? So I could do this. These are other attributes, right? And so if I refresh this, you can see that we have changed the height and the width of this element image, right? Another thing that we need to know about specifically for the image is that we can have an alt attribute, which specifically is, okay, so if for some reason the image wasn't able to load, what do you want to display? So I can say picture of brain, something like that. And it's not going to show because the picture is always going to load. So let's say I remove this, or let me delete this, right? And then I'm going to try to load this again. You can see picture of brain. Another type of attribute that we have to discuss is the lang attribute inside the HTML element tag. So I'm just going to create an HTML, have my doc type, all right, and then I'm gonna have my HTML as we talked about, and in this HTML, I'm gonna have my body, right? This is to define the body, all right, and let's just say I put all this thing that I did right here. I just cut it, put it in the body, right, and then let me format this, right. So the attribute that we are going to be looking at is called the lang attribute. So the lang attribute, it's an attribute of the HTML element, right? And what it does is, and I'm going to type it first before I tell you, it specifies the language of the web page, right? It declares the language of the web page, and this is mainly to assist search engines and browsers, right? So it's very important that you include it in your HTMLs, right? It's very helpful. So you can put in English, right? And what else you can do is that you can specify the country, right? So I can say English and US, right? So US English. So that is the uh, lang attributes. The next attribute is gonna be the title, right? Title attribute. So it just gives extra information about an element. So let's say, let's have another p tag, right? And in the p tag, we're going to say this is a paragraph with a tooltip, something like that, right? And I'm going to add so before then, if I refresh this, I'm just going to have, and sorry about that again. If I refresh this, you're gonna have that this is a paragraph with a tooltip, right? So how do we add a tooltip? And a tooltip, what it does is it gives extra information when you kind of hover over the element, right? So I'm gonna add the title, which is the attribute, and I'm gonna say Tooltip. Oops, not tooltip. Tool tip. Right. And then now when I refresh this and then I hover around this, you can see it says tooltip right right there. So that is another element attribute that we needed to discuss. This is all the content we are going to be discussing when it comes to attributes. Today we might see a few more when we go deep down into the course. Thank you for watching. See you in the next lesson. Bye.